Welcome to the Midnight Narrator, where the unknown is always lurking, and the unexplainable creeps just beyond the veil of our reality. Tonight's tale, The Fog on 87, takes us into the heart of the Texas Panhandle, where a mysterious atmospheric event turns a quiet drive into a nightmarish ordeal. Strange sounds, unmarked aircraft, and an oppressive fog create an atmosphere of dread that's almost impossible to believe. But sometimes, the scariest stories are the ones you wish you could forget, and this one, it refuses to be forgotten. Ready to face the unknown? It was the autumn of 2011, and the memory remains as vivid as a fresh wound. I was offered a substantial sum to remain silent for a decade regarding what I witnessed. That decade has passed, and while the money is long gone, the experience lingers. I'm sharing this anonymously, hoping the distance of the internet and the veil of anonymity will offer some protection. This took place in the desolate expanse of the Texas Panhandle. The October air was dry and brittle, the landscape a patchwork of scrub brush and cracked earth. I was driving south on US 87, returning from a visit to my sister in Amarillo. Some of the older locals whispered stories of strange lights in the sky, of disappearances and unexplained phenomena. I'd always dismissed them as folklore, but now, it began with the vehicle itself. The engine began to sputter and cough, the headlights flickered erratically, and the dashboard display went haywire, displaying a jumble of symbols and error codes. Then the radio cut out, replaced by a high-pitched whine that pierced my ears. I pulled over to the side of the road, noticing other vehicles doing the same. A strange stillness settled over the landscape. The usual sounds of the highway, the rumble of trucks, the whoosh of passing cars, vanished, replaced by an unnerving silence. Then came the tremor. It wasn't a violent jolt, but a slow undulating motion, like the earth was breathing beneath me. The ground visibly rippled, and cracks spread across the asphalt. I saw distant mesas shimmering like mirages distorted by the strange atmospheric disturbance. A lone hawk circled overhead, its cries echoing eerily in the stillness. The car's emergency alert system activated, a robotic voice cutting through the silence. Atmospheric instability detected. Remain in your vehicle. Activate hazard lights. Tune to emergency broadcast frequency 162.5 MHz. Possible extraterrestrial atmospheric interference detected. The message repeated endlessly. Minutes crawled by. A line of vehicles formed along the highway, hazard lights blinking in unison. Highway patrol units arrived, blocking off all lanes except for a designated detour leading to a nearby abandoned airfield. We were herded into the airfield, directed to park in tightly packed rows on the cracked concrete runway. Everyone was on their phones, frantically trying to connect, but the signal was jammed. The radio, tuned to the emergency frequency, emitted only static. The tension was palpable. A man in a nearby pickup truck started yelling at the officers, demanding answers. A warning shot fired into the air quickly silenced him. "Stay in your vehicles," officers barked through megaphones. "Lock your doors, windows up, engines off, remain calm." Some people attempted to record the scene, but their devices malfunctioned, the screens displaying distorted images and error messages. After an hour, the officers began distributing supplies, sealed pouches of water, protein bars, and individually wrapped crackers. They also handed out thick, opaque disposal bags. "For sanitation purposes only," they stated. "Use them inside your vehicles, seal them tightly, and place them outside when finished. Then return inside and wait for further instructions." I retreated to the back seat of the rental car, trying to conserve my laptop battery. The heat was oppressive, and a sense of claustrophobia began to gnaw at me. The feeling of being trapped, of having no control, was deeply unsettling. I watched as officers in protective suits collected samples from the vehicles using long, robotic arms. The samples were placed in sealed containers and quickly transported away by unmarked vans. It was clear they were dealing with something they didn't understand. The occupants of a station wagon to my left were speculating about the cause of the emergency. "Solar flare," one suggested. "Maybe some kind of chemical spill from a nearby fracking site," the other countered. I offered a different theory. Perhaps it was some kind of atmospheric phenomenon, a rare meteorological event. They seemed to consider this, their faces etched with worry. A baby began to cry in the car behind me, its wails echoing through the fog. A man's voice yelled, hushed and frantic, "Quiet, damn it!" I saw a woman in a nearby SUV frantically rolling up her windows, her face pale and her eyes wide with fear. She clutched a rosary in her trembling hands. We waited for hours. As dusk began to settle, several large, unmarked aircraft landed on the airfield. They were strange, wingless vehicles, resembling giant teardrops. The bullhorn announced, "We will be initiating a containment procedure. Remain inside your vehicles with windows closed and doors locked. Following the procedure, your vehicles will be covered. You will then be released in an orderly manner." A thick, opaque fog began to roll across the airfield, engulfing the vehicles. It smelled faintly of ozone and sulfur. The fog intensified, reducing visibility to near zero. Then large sheets of heavy-duty material, like those used to cover greenhouses, were deployed by the aircraft, completely enclosing the parking area. The bullhorn announced, "This is a standard precautionary measure. Remain calm and stay inside your vehicles. Further instructions will be provided." The world outside vanished, replaced by an oppressive silence and the thick, suffocating fog. I could hear muffled conversations, the occasional cough, the rustling of clothing. The air grew heavy and stagnant. Hours stretched into an agonizing eternity. The promised instructions never came. The atmosphere inside the cars became increasingly tense. Some people began honking their horns. Others shouted for answers. The feeling of claustrophobia intensified. Then, a new sound emerged from the fog. A series of high-pitched whistles, like the cries of some unknown creature. The whistles echoed across the covered parking area, multiplying, converging from all directions. Then, the sound of tearing metal and shattering glass erupted from the center of the parking area. Terrified screams pierced the fog, followed by sickening wet thuds. The sounds moved closer, a wave of primal fear washing over us. I heard frantic movements in the station wagon beside me. The doors burst open and people scrambled out, disappearing into the fog. I huddled on the floor of my rental car, my heart pounding in my chest. I could hear heavy footsteps moving across the roof, the plastic sheeting tearing above me. The whistling sounds grew closer, encircling the vehicle. Then silence. The heavy footsteps moved on. The whistling receded into the distance. After what felt like an eternity, I cautiously emerged from the car. The plastic covering was ripped to shreds. Cars were overturned and mangled. There were no bodies, only pools of viscous fluid and scattered fragments of metal and glass. In the distance, I saw a fleeting glimpse of a tall, indistinct shape moving through the fog. It vanished quickly into the swirling mist. The authorities returned at dawn. The scene was one of utter devastation. Some people were found hiding under their vehicles. Others were huddled together in shock. There were no explanations, only more sealed containers and more non-disclosure agreements. I signed the agreement, received my compensation, and returned home. But the memory of the fog, the whistles, the unseen horrors, continues to haunt me. And sometimes, when the wind blows just right, I feel a phantom vibration in the ground beneath my feet, a subtle reminder of what I witnessed that day. And that's the end of the fog on 87, a nightmarish event shrouded in secrecy, with more questions than answers, and a lingering terror that won't fade with time. What happened that night? What did we truly witness in that suffocating fog? As the years pass, we may never know, but the echoes of that experience, the whistles, the footsteps, and the eerie silence, remain. If you found tonight's story as unsettling as I did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more tales from the edge of reality. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most terrifying thing isn't what we see, but what we never see. This is the Midnight Narrator, and we'll be waiting just beyond the fog.